Hello and welcome back to the F1 Roundtable podcast. Today we are going to discuss the Styrian Grand Prix, the second Austrian Grand Prix. And here to discuss with me are Mun and Lester. So let's get on with it. It was a decent race and a decent amount of points for Mercedes and McLaren, but others had a much difficult race this time around.
Definitely not as exciting as last week, but still it was a really good race, like in terms of strategy, like how Bottas was supposed to catch up at the end, and that anticipation was really exciting.
Yes, the last 5 laps were
yeah.
amazing.
And yeah, Ferrari, another bad race for them, very bad.
Merck showed their hand clearly in yesterday's race. It was a very good race for them, and as well as the midfield battle was very interesting to watch. As Lester mentioned, the last few laps were a bit exciting for the whole race, but as in between became a bit boring.
Yeah, a little bit, a tad bit. It was a fun race at the end. It was a really...
Just the anticipation, that, Bottas is going to catch up. You like a true F1 fan will be like, okay, you know what, we are not watching this for the instant. We know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Ahead, so that's why, we're excited.
And also Racing Point showed their true hand this time on.
Perez started what? I'm not sure where exactly he started. I think 17th was it?
Yeah, 17th.
17th to, although he had his problems at the end, but still that was a really good race.
Yeah, he almost reached onto 4th position. Like without the damage, he would have probably caught into the 4th position. 17 to 4th in a Racing Point. Like crazy.
Amazing.
But yeah, let's start with the Mercedes. What about the two guys there?
Man, Hamilton was like on another level.
Yeah, he had no challenge. He just flew off.
Just
Hamilton
from
had
qualifying itself.
And he had an easy race too. Like no one was able to challenge him. Last time around, Bottas was in so much pressure because Hamilton was always closer to him and there were like 3 safety car restarts to take care of and everything. But this time on, Hamilton had a very, very easy race.
The qualifying played its part because Bottas started 4th. I guess that played into Hamilton's, and he was able to get a great gap from the start of the race itself and was managing his tire very well.
Pretty good when it comes to tire management that way. I know he makes a lot of complaints on the radio, but when it comes to proving his point, he generally always does it.
Yeah, he's amazing at tire management, and also like Bottas got into too much traffic and the second part of his stint couldn't really catch up with Hamilton and challenge. That was a decent haul of points for Mercedes and a little worrying for Bottas for his championship. But let's see. And talking about Bottas, news just in from Autosport that he might have agreed to a deal to stay with Mercedes for next year. Again, a 1-year deal although, but yeah, looks like Bottas is staying at Mercedes.
He's just performing really well at the moment.
Maybe a 2-year deal might have done him a little bit better, like he would have performed a little bit better. But
Exactly.
I guess 1+1 option is also better for him and suits him, I guess.
I mean, yeah.
We have seen this before with Mercedes as well. They generally don't like to look too much into the future. They're like, okay, you know what, 1-year deal, and then we'll see what happens later on.
Like it's a little sad for Bottas that he always gets a 1-year deal. Like the team isn't trusting him enough for 2 years. It feels like that. But yeah, let's see next year. But at least he's staying there in 2021, so that's a good thing.
Well, Russell's not happy about that.
Obviously not. He's shown some performance, but we'll discuss about Russell a bit later on. Moving to McLaren, they had a surprisingly bad race from the start to the second stint even, and then in the last 5 laps, Lando just flew and took all the points he could get.
Yeah, most of the race Lando was I think 11th, and I think it was just like I was thinking he'll be out of the points, but then he just was really good.
Yeah, even Sainz, when he let him pass, that was a good move by McLaren to maximize their points.
That shows that both the drivers respect each other, and like Sainz moved very easily. Like he didn't wait for a few laps to let Lando by. He just, as soon as the message was sent, he just let Lando by, and I guess that proved helpful to catch Stroll and Ricciardo, and in finally getting P5 from Perez as well.
Yeah, and like even Brundle said this, like between the McLaren drivers, the ego doesn't get in their way. They just help the team wherever they can. So that was an amazing point made by Brundle.
Ocon needs to learn something there.
Oh man, he does. We'll talk about him a little later on, but yeah, definitely he does. Moving on to Red Bull Racing, Max had a decent race pace actually, but Albon was struggling.
Yeah, Max probably did the best he could. I mean, he maximized whatever he could from the strategy he had as well. Albon, yeah, he really drifted off the top 3, and then he just didn't seem to have any pace to catch up to them, and then Perez was really catching him.
Yeah, Perez could have caught him. Perez could have easily caught him, but like the contact and the wing broke, and that was it for Perez.
I was having like anxiety at that time because on the TV, on the timing screens, I could see 0.1, 0.1, and then they're not even showing it on the TV.
Exactly. Yeah. The TV directors really miss out on the good shots. They always do. They always like they'll show a midfield car just chasing each other in like a train, and there's a battle going on, and they won't just show it. It's
I
crazy.
was just looking at it, and then it went down to 7 seconds. I'm like, what happened? I need to know.
Yeah, we saw that wing breaking in the replay. Yeah, that was sad. Could have been amazing to watch it live.
Ironically, I think they were showing signs at that point.
I saw a comment by WTF1. They were like, Sainz asked for a slower pit stop just so that he could get
Yeah.
more screen on time. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a little cruel.
But with Albon, I was getting like Pierre Gasly flashbacks.
Oh, all race long.
Yeah, the second weekend clearly proved difficult for Albon. Like from this practice itself, he was having difficulties. The car wasn't suited to him as much as it was to Max, I guess. The setup and all.
Yeah, that's a problem with the Red Bull team itself. It only prefers one driver's setup and forces the other driver to use that same setup. Pierre Gasly did point it out, right, last year that like the car is totally built to suit Max Verstappen. So you just have to make do with it.
They generally always put all their bets on one driver itself. Then again, the money comes from the constructors, not the drivers' championship.
Exactly, but I guess they were like gunning totally 100% for Max's championship, and they didn't realize how quick Mercedes was.
Yeah, this race marks that in the testing it was clearly visible that Merc were like 0.5 ahead of the rest of the field, and yesterday's race clearly proved us that it's going to be a fight between those two guys only. If and only if Red Bull can catch up and fight Mercedes equally, because like in yesterday's circuit there was also a deficit in the engine ERS output as well. Like it was clearly visible like Mercedes was way ahead of Honda in terms of engine power also.
Yeah, totally. And like even looking at the constructors' points, Mercedes have 80 and Red Bull have 27. I mean, they had reliability issues last race, but still a long gap to catch up on. And secondly, with the shortened calendar, you never know.
And they seem to have figured out their reliability issues as well.
That's a good point. That's a positive point.
Thing is, Red Bull could possibly challenge Mercedes, but they can't do it with just one driver.
They cannot. They need to learn that.
Like yesterday's race, it was clearly visible. Like Max was boxed between both the drivers, and Merc played with the strategy. Like they pitted Lewis first, then Bottas was not called into the pit for the next 5 or 10 laps, I guess.
Yeah.
So like they can play. Like Max was like trying to undercut Bottas, but like it was a tricky move. Like to have one driver, whereas to have two drivers fighting for the team.
Albon did really need to get up to speed with that car, but yeah. He was complaining about a lot of oversteer. Maybe that was the issue. Maybe he was not confident enough with that car. Let's see what he does in the next race. Talking about the next race, it's a Mercedes track again. This season looks like a Mercedes season.
Verstappen will be close, but again, it's just two drivers against one mostly.
Yeah, it looks like it. Fourth in the championship are Racing Point. I mean, people are scared of Racing Point. Like even Christian Horner today commented saying that every team on the grid should be worried about Racing Point.
If not for Perez's wing problem, they would have easily finished fourth.
Yep, they would have easily finished.
That goes to shows their strength. Like Perez was like putting in fastest lap continuously once he pitted, and like no one was near his pace during that time.
Yeah, he put on like 3 or 4 consecutive fastest laps. Like that was amazing to see. But also like Stroll comes alive in races. His qualifying is always subpar, but damn, he really does stuff in races. Like he really gets on with it. Clearly overtook Ricciardo on merit. There was nothing there. He really pushed himself. So that was good to see.
I think Racing Point have two good drivers in terms of when it comes to the race at least. Maybe not the best at qualifying, but they're pretty good race drivers.
That's good enough. He's not too far from his teammate in race pace. So that's good to see. Then moving on to Ferrari, which are 5th in the constructors and have 19 points, 1-9. To Mercedes is 80. That's just sad to see.
I mean, what do we say? The safety car had more race time than the Ferraris this race.
Oh yeah, that's true. Damn.
Like this shows like Ferrari has a possibility of finishing 4th as well this year if they don't perform
I think
at the next few races. Already because there is a shortened calendar, they had a double DNF. That's very hard to recover.
Also, they brought their upgrades to this race, which they couldn't test as well.
They didn't look promising anyway. I don't think
Like-
it matters.
This year is a repeat of 2014 Ferrari, not like one Ferrari qualifying, finishing P11, not making it to Q3. For both the races, like we had one driver finishing in P11, so that goes to show that the car is lacking somewhere around.
That engine though, that engine. The points difference is crazy. Like, so like the Mercedes engines have scored 102 points. The Renault engines have scored 47 points. Honda is sitting on 34 points with the reliability issues, and Ferrari engines, all the Ferrari engines on the back of 6 cars, and they have only scored 21 points.
This will be even worse for Haas because they've already got a very low budget, and then we've all seen the Netflix series. They could be on the verge of dropping out. It's not what we want to see as F1 fans.
Exactly.
This goes to show that last year's agreement between FIA and Ferrari, something was fishy in last year's engine, I guess.
Yeah, it
They were
does look
caught.
like it. Moving on to Renault and their performance, they could have scored more points. In this race, they wasted about 4 laps. Ocon really needs to understand that he was on the slower tire, and he really needed to let Daniel pass. Renault really needs to manage their drivers to get the most out of the races.
Yeah, Ocon is a good driver, but he's not one that will just give up the place. So I think they need to really look at the team game there, because if you compare them to their equal like McLaren or Racing Point, team dynamic is very good. So Renault need to work on that if they want to beat them.
Exactly.
And also the reliability concerns. For both the consecutive races, our driver was retired because of reliability issues.
Yeah,
So,
they really need to
if-
sort that out. But they still do need to look at playing the team game like McLaren always do. They always, whenever they see a slower driver, they just swap it. And as I said before, Martin Brundle said the ego doesn't get in the way of the driver, because they respect in each other and they look at the bigger picture that they score more points. But as we saw, both Renault drivers were on different strategies. Ricardo was on the softs and Ocon was on the mediums, but Ocon did not let him pass for like 3 to 4 laps. That was just wasting time. They were wasting the tires, and this is not good for the team.
Their competitors were just taking advantage of that and just built a bigger gap and became even harder.
Exactly, that's the point. They really need to sort that out.
Like Renault should take the advantage of Ferrari not performing and gain more points. Even if we consider that, like, if they are fighting for P5, if that should be like achieved in this year, then they should like really increase the team game as well as the reliability also for both the cars.
Exactly, yeah, and looks like third position in the Constructors' Championship is up for grabs because Ferrari is not a player in there anymore. Moving on to AlphaTauri, they had a decent race. Pierre Gasly was really struggling with his tires, but well, they came off with 1 point at least.
They just took really bad strategy calls, not really good on their part, and so I mean he had 2 stops, so there was not much that he could do either.
Exactly. But at least they scored 1 point with Daniel Kvyat, so that kind of damage limitation. But we didn't see of much of the AlphaTauris anyway in the race, so doesn't really matter. And moving on to Alfa Romeo, they were nowhere in the race. They're really struggling
Yeah.
with the Ferrari engine in the back.
We didn't really see much of them at all.
Yeah, no, we don't see that. And we are not also seeing Haas. They are also nowhere with the car and the engine. Like, they're really struggling.
Except for Grosjean going off, we did see that.
Yeah, we always see that. That's like not even a surprise anymore.
Haas are again struggling with brakes this year, I guess.
Yeah, they are again struggling. And I also read an article about how brakes are not listed parts anymore, so they have to get it from a third party. Before they used to get brakes directly from Ferrari. They're really struggling with that. Yeah, so like it's a fight between Haas and Williams for the last spot.
Oh man, Russell, that was really sad.
It was sad to see Russell go out. He could have been closer to a point. He could have been probably 11th or 12th even. But
And it would have been nice to see what would have happened even if they didn't get a point. Like if he hadn't gone off, because he was really fighting there.
yeah, Williams have got a little more pace, like a lot more pace compared to last year, but there is still pace in that car.
They've obviously got a really good engine, so
Yeah, I mean-
considering how Ferrari is doing badly this year, they might try to capitalize on that.
Yeah, exactly. So like they might climb up a spot this year.
Yeah, like last year they were way off from the second last team, but this year they are close to the pack as well. So
Yeah,
that's good to
exactly.
see.
Yeah. So like they can move up a spot. So that's good for them.
We seen a Williams in Q2 as well.
Yeah, that was surprising. That qualifying was amazing to watch. Even Latifi was up to par on Russell this time. He was gaining on Russell a lot, but in the last lap, that yellow flag he just couldn't get the lap together because of that yellow flag. Otherwise, he was gaining. Both the Williams could have been in Q2. So yeah, that was a fun race. Also, talking about what happened after the race, there's finally a protest against Racing Point. I mean, that took a long while, but it's here now. What do you guys think about it?
I think Reynolds is being a bit of a sore loser.
I mean, I guess, or maybe they just waited to gather the evidence, the correct evidence, so that it doesn't get thrown off.
Yeah, and also there was an article like the team mentioned that they didn't want to protest this thing at the first race itself because F1 was back after such a tough time, so they waited for a race and they came back with a bang, and it's a difficult one to judge also. It would be a difficult call for FIA as well, I guess.
Yeah, looks like it. Even I read it somewhere that like Renault actually waited for a race just so that they can give time in case doesn't make headlines in the first weekend of the race. That's just them being good, or maybe they just needed more evidence. We don't really know now. We just
like thinking whether their protest is actually like it's about the brake ducts, right? So are they? That's not a listed part now, so you can't buy that from another team.
Yeah,
they do seem to. I mean, obviously the whole car is a copy basically, but what do you know?
I mean, the brake ducts are a very, very complicated design, so you can't just copy them off because there are many unseen parts inside the brakes as well. So if the brake designs match of the 2019 Mercedes and 2020 Racing Point, that's going to be big trouble for them.
There are many silent teams who are backing to this protest but are not agreeing to put their name on the official protest as well. That was mentioned in the by a Renault team personnel as well.
Yeah.
Like other teams are looking into this protest clearly, like backing it.
Yeah, people.
McLaren would obviously be one of them.
Yeah, everyone is like backing this protest. Like Racing Point is backed into a corner, but no one's is putting their official name on the document. That's just it. But like, it doesn't matter
if Mercedes
they
doesn't seem to have a problem. I think.
Exactly. I mean, they're just too far off to watch what's happening behind them, so it doesn't really matter to them. But yeah, I mean, Mercedes could also be in trouble because now they have been dragged into the case as well, because the investigation is between Racing Point and Mercedes, not just Racing Point. So yeah, let's see how that develops.
I feel that Mercedes won't really be hurt with that because they're already on to their 2020 designs, and unless if it's a fine or something, they might have to pay. But performance-wise, I don't think they are going to be affected.
No, they won't be affected, but like it's a hit on the name. Also a fine would be bad publicity. They probably want to avoid that. It's such a big brand. It has such a presence in Formula One, so like it really doesn't want to hurt its name, even though it doesn't really matter to their championship or anything. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Let's see.
Anyway, now we look forward to the next race, Hungary. I mean, it's totally a Mercedes track and a Hamilton's track. He's won for the last 2 years, as far as I remember. So yeah, let's see what happens this year. Let's see who can challenge Hamilton this time on. Can't wait.
Let's hope we get a good fight between the two Merc driver and Max this weekend.
Exactly. I mean, Ferrari, we can't even count on Ferrari now, can we?
We clearly cannot.
Yeah, well, looking forward to the next race. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.